Great. Well, welcome to the next session of this really exciting Restart event organised by ourselves, the Norfolk Enterprise Festival, and the Local Enterprise Partnership. And the central vision of today's event is, look, as we start to think about how we learn to live with COVID and build an economic recovery that will allow us to build back better, bounce back better, how do we do that here in Norfolk and Suffolk? And how do we make sure that we've got a really strong voice of the entrepreneurs on the front line of building the really exciting businesses that are shaping the technologies, products, jobs of tomorrow? Now, this session we refer to it as the Magnificent Seven. It's a chance for you to meet some of our 7 leaders of the 7 most exciting growth sectors in Norfolk and Suffolk. This is a piece of work that we've done with the LEP, looking at those areas of the economy that are most likely to create the most exciting new jobs of tomorrow. And they're the things that the LEP has got at the heart of its economic development strategy. So food, agriculture and nutrition, energy, medicine, mobility, health technology, and that whole challenge of how we do domiciliary and home care better, digital technology, digital marketing, the arts, all of those things, and energy that this part of the world is famous for and genuinely world class at. So what we're doing in this project is bringing together leaders, respected, acknowledged leaders of each of those 7 to work with us over the next 6 months to put together a very entrepreneurial, practical recovery plan led by, crucially, the people on the front line of the fastest growing areas of our economy. And I'm delighted today to be joined by 4 of those entrepreneurs who are all there visible to you on the screen. Hi, guys.
Hey. Hi there.
We've got, perhaps if, as I introduce you, you could wave and then everyone knows which is which. We've got Dr. Louise Jopling. Louise runs the Eastern Academic Health Science initiative, which I helped to set up when I was Minister for Life Science, which is about creating much greater interaction between health technology companies and the health service so we get more uptake. Genevieve Christie from the First Light Festival. Genevieve is a pioneer of bringing together arts and digital technology to help create digital and real-time communities in the cultural sector. And Rosie Begg, who's going to wave. There's Rosie, who will be known to you as, well, I hope she'll be known to you, she will shortly, as the Ribena farmer. Rosie has taken over with her husband Alex the family farm. They're big blackcurrant growers and suppliers, and there is no better champion of the exciting opportunities in our agricultural and food sector. And then last but by no means least, Juliana Mayer, wave, Juliana, who is a great leader of our digital sector. So those are 4 of our Magnificent 7. The really astute amongst you would have noticed that they are all women. And this is no accident, but the truth is that in our really exciting fast growth areas, many of our entrepreneurs are women. And part of what we're trying to do at the Norfolk Enterprise Festival is create a genuinely more insurgent, entrepreneurial and creative culture to get away from the sort of stale, pale, male old conferences of old, people in suits, and create a much more exciting conversation with the people who are actually creating these businesses. So welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for agreeing to be our Norfolk Enterprise Festival champions. Can I invite you each just to say a few words about your sector? Rosie, I'm going to start with you, just because I know you best and I know I know the story, and then perhaps we'll work around. Just 2 or 3 minutes, could you, on what you do, how you got to be there, and what your business does. Rosie. I can't hear you, but I don't know if others can.
I can't hear you, Rosie.
No. Okay. Let's go to Juliana while we get Rosie's connection working.
Okay. Hi. So I'm Juliana. I'm CEO and founder of Superpass, and we're a technology company that makes out-of-the-box content, mobile apps and websites. We work with all sorts of different kind of businesses, particularly businesses that have a lot of audio and video content. So that might be podcasters, TV and film, fitness instructors, e-learning, online courses, conferences, charities, basically any business that's got content, which these days is pretty much most businesses. And obviously we've seen that shift even more in the last few months with what's been happening with the pandemic. So we work with lots of different kinds of businesses all around the world. But we also work with some great businesses in the local region. So I thought it'd be good to maybe just highlight a few of those. So for example, the History of Advertising Trust. They have 2.4 million digital assets of advertising over the last nearly a century, and they use our app to put their content into care homes as reminiscence therapy for Alzheimer's patients. Another example is Tony Britton, who has the Arts Channel with our technology, and he wrote the Champions League football music, and he's made basically a Netflix of arts and culture using our technology. We're also doing the Restart Festival app, which I hope that you've all downloaded, but if you haven't, you can just go to the App Store and search for Restart Festival, and you'll see that. We're also doing an app with the Norfolk Chamber of Commerce and lots of other wonderful businesses. So we're really helping lots of people during this time to transition online and really make the most of the opportunities around us at the moment. It is a very rapid changing world, and a lot of people are being very innovative and changing. What we've seen over the last 6 months is that we've seen our clients have increased their digital revenue over 250% through the use of our technology. So it's proving very, very powerful to help people in times where we not only want to help businesses survive, but also to really thrive. And that's really what we're focused on at the moment.
Brilliant. Juliana, thank you. Can I just ask, can you just say a word about how your career and how you got to be running this really exciting business?
So there's a long winding story, but I'll try to keep it to a really short couple of sentences. So I started off my first business at 16, which was in music. Then I went and did an engineering degree at Oxford. Then I went back into music, ran my own label, did some random things like played at Glastonbury Festival and wrote Norfolk's Olympic song for the 2012 Olympics. And then really my work in the music industry, I thought there was a better way to use technology to make that connection between a super fan and their most loyal, an artist and their most loyal super fans more efficient. And that really was the beginning of Superpass. Sorry, I don't know why I can't speak today. The beginning of Superpass. And then what happened was then we had lots of businesses in other areas outside of music that came to us and said, we really want to use this too. And that's really where we started to branch out into all these other areas. So the company's really evolved over time. It actually was our 9th birthday on Saturday. So
congratulations.
I've been doing this a long time. Thank you. So yeah, so we started, I was completely bootstrapping the first 3 years, had absolutely no money, was funding it by teaching cello in the evenings. So really done the kind of hard graft. Then we were very lucky to get investment. So I've had investment from quite a lot of local investment funds. So Anglia Capital Group, actually New Anglia LEP have invested as well. The East of England Co-op have invested. Lots of wonderful local angel investors have invested. So we've been very supported by the local community. And I guess the other thing to also mention is I co-founded Sync Norwich, which is Norwich's tech and startup community, which happened to be founded at the same time as Superpass, because basically we set it up. I set up at the time when I didn't know anyone in Norwich really in the tech community and wanted to meet some people to build a team with. And that was the first meeting, was 12 of us in a pub. And a few months later, we had some co-founders and there were sold out events, and it's kind of grown from there. And I haven't been involved with it directly for the last few years, but it's just going from strength to strength with everyone that's taken it on, and they're doing an amazing job. And it's so wonderful to see the community thriving in all these wonderful ways.
Well, brilliant. It's a brilliant story, and a reminder that necessity is always the mother of invention. Now, Rosie,
Totally.
Are you with us? Rosie's screen has frozen, which tells me that I've got to do more work to get her fast broadband. I think... Oh, are you there, Rosie? Have we got you? No. Okay. Let's go to Genevieve. Can you just tell us a bit about your story and the business?
Hello. Yes. So I'm Genevieve Christie. I hope you can see me and hear me. I'm the director of the First Light Festival, which is a relatively new festival that took place in Lowestoft last year, to great success, actually. But I'll tell you a little bit in chronological order about myself. I'm actually a graduate of the UEA, but when I left there, I then went to work in television. I've actually worked in the creative sort of industries for a long time now, but started off in the TV industry, at the BBC and at a lot of independents. I formed my own television production company and produced a lot of programs for major broadcasters and internationally. And then when I moved to East Anglia, I co-founded a publishing company called Full Circle Editions, which was an award-winning company, which was great. We published some lovely books, and that's now part of something called the Publishing Project at UEA. And then from that, I kind of again adapted transferable skills. So from television to publishing, and then actually have gone into festival production. I was producing festivals called Flipside at Snape Maltings, and most recently at Henham, which were sort of literature and arts, and still ongoing. And then in about 2015, we converted Flipside into a charity, and that work took me to parts of the region to investigate sort of cultural engagement and where there might be a gap in that. And that took me to Lowestoft, and I started to work in that town. And then I became very involved in it, and started a conversation really with East Suffolk Council, Suffolk County Council, and with a brand leader called Wayne Hemingway about the seafront vision for Lowestoft. Wayne and I then actually formed, with a couple of other directors, a company to really sort of develop the vision, to animate the kind of vision for improved infrastructure for the town. And we came up with the idea of First Light Festival. What we wanted to do was change the narrative around Lowestoft, a place often seen as an end-of-the-line sort of town. And we wanted to switch that so that people would think of it actually as the place where the most easterly sun rises first in the whole of the UK. And so we developed this really innovative festival, which is a non-stop 24-hour festival, all about celebrating the coast, that part of the county. Last year we had 35,000+ people came to it over the 24 hours. It was fantastic. This year, of course, we've had to adapt. That's our buzzword, I think, this year. We did an online offering around midsummer. We were thrilled to get 50,000+ people engaged with it online. So we know that, you know, culture is a huge and important part of people's lives. And I'm still very involved, obviously, in developing that for next year, along with other developments for the seafront in Lowestoft that is ongoing at the moment. So exciting things to come. So that's me, really.
Brilliant. Genevieve, thank you. What a fantastic story, and illustrating part of our theme in the Enterprise Festival, that art and culture and the spirit of creativity is completely fundamental to an entrepreneurial approach to placemaking and regeneration. I mean, you're the embodiment of that. Thank you. Now let's try Rosie. I can see a smile.
I'm back.
Great, welcome back. Rosie,
Thank
can you
you.
tell us your story, how you got to be, how you got to be blackcurrant woman?
Yes. Thank you, George. So I took over my family farm 2 years ago, so when I just turned 29, and our farm is in Gresson Hall in mid-Norfolk. And as George said, we grow blackcurrants. So our farm's about 330 hectares, and just roughly about 100 hectares of blackcurrants all go to Ribena. And then 100 hectares are arable, and that's about to change and go into a higher tier countryside stewardship scheme. And then we've got 60 hectares of grassland, and then the rest is woodland and lakes, and one triple SI, a car called Dillington Car. Background or experience in farming. So when I joined 2 years ago, I basically just had to start learning really quickly. And, you know, as well as being a massive challenge, it also, I think, actually has been helpful in the way that, you know, I don't know anything or have any preconceived ideas of how it should be. I question everything all the time, much to probably everyone's annoyance. And it's mainly understanding, are we doing the things in the way we do because it's right for our farm, or are we doing it because we've always done it and haven't thought about another way? So we had a really successful blackcurrant harvest, and that's partly down to some technology that we're using to help with our data-led decisions. I think partly weather and partly luck, so we'll see. But I'm on this journey to become a regenerative farmer, and that's a holistic approach. So that's it, incorporating biodiversity and the farm and how we can work with nature in a responsible way. And then in my spare time with my husband, are just closing the successful share offer for our community pub. So that's the last pub in the village. And I think, I grew up in Grassenhall and then I went away for university and work for a bit. And I hadn't quite realised the community spirit that we have here. And that's, I'm sure, throughout Norfolk and Suffolk, the importance of that during COVID has really been highlighted. And I feel, very lucky to be where I am. And it's, I'm definitely at the beginning, but have got the passion and drive to learn and share my learnings along the way.
Brilliant. Rosie, thank you. And you may feel lucky to be here. I have to say, we're lucky to have you and all. Part of this entrepreneurial vision for creating a rural renaissance, it's all about attracting, retaining, recruiting the bright sparks, the people who make stuff happen. Not just because you guys create businesses, although that's in the end the lifeblood of everybody's daily existence, but also you've all highlighted that you also then end up doing other things in the community, and the work you and Alex are doing to get the Grassenhall pub going is just another example of why we need entrepreneurs in the rural economy. So thank you for what you're doing. Which brings us, I think, to Louise. Can you hear us, Louise?
Hi, George. Yeah. Can you hear me, George?
I certainly can. Now, you and I are we're old friends on this one because we share a passion for health technology. For those who are looking in and wondering, why here in rural Norfolk and Suffolk are we talking about health tech? I would suggest to you two things. Firstly, Cambridge, Norwich, Ipswich are clusters of incredible science and technology, which we haven't been good enough as a society at actually using in our actual county-based healthcare systems. But also because in Norfolk and Suffolk, we have some of the most challenging demographics around how we look after the elderly, how we make sure we're not shoveling everyone into hospitals that they don't enjoy and we can't afford, and how we, as COVID has demonstrated, get better, smarter technology, detecting earlier, caring for people at home. So health tech is going to be fundamental to a 21st century East Anglia. And Louise, you're on the front line of making sure that what is traditionally quite a difficult conversation between the innovators and the NHS procurers actually works in a regional way. So can you tell us a bit about yourself and also what the Academic Health Science Network is doing?
Great, thanks, George. So good afternoon. I'm a scientist by training, so having grown up in Suffolk many years ago, but at the heart of my what drives me is having worked in the universities in our region, so in academia, in biotech, and in large pharmaceutical companies over my career. What drove me or drives me is understanding the biology to help identify new therapies for inflammatory diseases, but also how we can understand how existing therapies work in some patients and not so well in others. And that's what I focused much of my earlier career in up until a couple of years ago when I moved across, and I'm currently the commercial director at Eastern Academic Health Science Network. And the reason that I made that move was actually often as the scientist, I felt quite removed from really bringing that impact to patients and bringing that in a quicker way or in a near-term kind of way. And so I should say what an Academic Health Science Network is. So we're actually the innovation arm of the National Health Service. And there are 15 AHSNs or Academic Health Science Networks in England, all geographically spread. And in Eastern Academic Health Science Network, we focus on the east of England, so obviously Norfolk and Suffolk being prime counties within that. And we're funded by the NHS and the Office for Life Sciences to, as George rightly said, to accelerate the uptake, adoption and spread of innovation within the NHS. And that's within our region, but it's also what works in our region. Let's move that to other regions and quickly so that the whole population can benefit. And then our second remit is really to create that economic growth, which is, again, what this entrepreneurial restart initiative is around as well. And that's economic growth within our region, but for UK as a whole. And so how do we do that? We work, so there's three different tenets to our strategy and how we work and bring that innovation to the health system, is to bring together all those stakeholders across health and care, or convene those stakeholders. And these include citizens, patients, the universities, health services industry, and the investment community. Because actually by coming together and working on problems, the health challenges, the health inequalities that we're all facing, together, that's going to much more likely to succeed in creating positive impact rather than doing that on our own. Then secondly, we develop those ideas and put them into practice. Ideas will just remain ideas, but actually by testing, and whether it's failing fast or whether it's iterating quickly, that's really what is going to help us drive that innovation cycle forward. And then finally, it's delivering. So we deliver a number of national NHS programmes across the entirety of our region's health and care system, and support the largest health and life sciences cluster in Europe. And that's not just Cambridge. You know, we've got many others within our region. And again, being somebody that's really a key proponent of what you've got at the Norwich Research Park and other areas in Norfolk, but also across in Suffolk and the innovation centres that are there, and those hubs, bringing all of those together to help us embed this innovation mindset within the NHS culture is going to absolutely benefit us all.
Thank you very much. And you can see that if we're going to tackle the biggest issue in our UK life science sector, which is Britain is a great place to develop and invent, but a terrible place traditionally to get your innovation purchased, then we're going to need these academic health science networks to drive that first procurement. And I'm very proud, having set them up as Minister for Life Science, that they're doing well. And for anyone who's involved in little technology companies, you'll know that actually at the beginning, it isn't just about money, it's about validation. And the most validating thing the NHS can do to help a startup is to say, we will take in 1,000 of your units, put them into use in the NHS, so you can go around the world and say, being used by the NHS. That's actually often more important than the purchase order. It'd be nice if you get a purchase order eventually, but that early accelerated adoption is the key. So thank you for what you're doing. Now, in a minute, I want to ask you all, just to give you a bit of warning, what for you would be the kind of 2 or 3 key things in your sector that you think those of us in government, local and national, need to be doing if we really want to make Norfolk and Suffolk a much more vibrant home for more people like you to do what you do. But while you're thinking about that, I just want to share a story with viewers. When I was UK Trade Envoy, having had a career in science and been the Minister for Life Science, I went to the Philippines. And I was told by the civil servants, as I was preparing to be flown out, to what they later told me was the world's political assassination capital, but that's a different story. They said, now this isn't, George, about science. This won't be all your food, medicine, energy stuff. This is concrete, roads, dams, reconstruction. That's the main economy in the Philippines. And guess what? When I got there, I discovered the Philippines is pretty much run by 10 families, 10 businesses. When you actually talk to them about what they really want long term, it was all food, medicine, energy. They wanted to get away from over-dependence on China for energy from coal, over-dependence from China and America actually on very expensive drugs, and they wanted to get away from over-reliance on companies outside of the Philippines in those sectors and to try and grow a higher growth sector. And the trade delegation actually led to 3 of them coming back to Norwich. because I was able to explain to them that Norwich Research Park is actually the world's leader in food, medicine and energy, and understanding how those three interrelate. And if that sounds wonky, I'll just share this with you. I sat recently in a Lotus, designed and manufactured it in Norfolk, powered by Formula One low carbon biofuel made by genetically modified bugs at the NRP. And that's life science really driving a clean, green, smart economy. And of course, food, medicine, energy go together. Rosie's farm is creating a wildlife habitat. She's reducing the energy footprint. The NRP is developing drought-resistant crops, disease-resistant crops. It's also leading in nutrition, gut science, the biome, how we use bugs to break down waste, and in obviously healthcare and pharmaceuticals. Imagine if we started to put all that together, didn't just do the research, but actually embraced those innovations in the way we live in Norfolk. That means more people drinking Ribena, Rosie, more people being able to go to care homes that are using health technology developed here in Norfolk. And imagine if we put digital connectivity and the arts and science at the heart of a Norfolk and Suffolk recovery, we'd have a very different sort of place. And that's why we've put you all together with mobility, with property, with energy, and with the broader digital technology. So the four of you represent four of our magnificent seven. So let me ask you, if we were wanting, as we've been invited to do by the LEP, to put together a really entrepreneurial plan for how people like you could drive a better economy, better recovery, obviously that's the work we're going to do over the next 6 months. But off the top of your head now, what sort of things do you think policymakers should be thinking about? Let's start, Juliana, with you. I can't hear you, but is that just me?
Sorry, I'd muted.
There you are.
Sorry about that. So I'm here obviously representing digital and technology. So if we're talking about, how can our sector drive growth in Norfolk and Suffolk, and what should policymakers be looking at and stuff? I guess with digital, it kind of underpins everything. Technology more than ever is one of the things that is in an economy where a lot of industries are really struggling. Actually, digital is exploding. There's lots of different areas where it's growing, and I think it's down to individual businesses to think about how they can adapt and be flexible to be able to roll with the changes. There's an interesting quote here that I made a note of for today from the McKinsey Group, where they said that changes in consumer behavior being driven by COVID is actually now becoming the new norm. And they say that customers are basically stating that they don't foresee a return to the old ways of buyer behavior. So I think that we're living in a world now where people have been forced online a lot more. A lot of people were already doing things like online shopping. Our business, for example, has been using Zoom for all of our client and sales calls for 3 years. But now everyone is using Zoom. There's all sorts of things where even though some early adopters or some sectors of the population were doing stuff, now everyone's doing it. It's become the new normal. And now that people are used to it, I don't think that's going to change. Yeah. And I think that the thing that businesses have to do is really think about, okay, so how can I adapt my business to survive this? And what we've seen is that a lot of businesses are now operating online in ways that either they didn't know or they thought they probably could do, but they weren't prioritizing it. And they were thinking, oh, I'll make the time and investment in it later. And suddenly this accelerated everything. And I mean, we saw that absolutely in our business at Superpass, where it was kind of on two fronts. So one, existing clients pretty much across the board all started using their websites and apps, which we make for them, way more, starting doing a lot more with their content. We very rapidly adapted to their needs. So we built a lot of new features, add a lot of new features to our products. During the lockdown period, we kind of put our planned roadmap on hold and then built all these new features in response to that. So I think that, being really adaptable and innovative and agile in your ability to change with opportunities is really important. And we did that for our clients, but then saw them using those changes to then really drive growth in their businesses. I mentioned earlier, we saw, over 250% growth in their revenue as a result of that. But what was really amazing was seeing the innovation that we saw with those clients, and they're across all sorts of areas. So for example, our fitness clients, they were doing deals with gyms that were suddenly closing and couldn't have their membership. They were doing deals to be able to actually sell in their app to all those members so that the gyms didn't lose their memberships. We had I guess it's another fitness one where they were doing physical classes and then it all moved online to Zoom, but they could use our app to actually have the Zoom classes where everyone was automatically paying and having access to the right classes, and then the classes were all private in a secret space that we made so that the postnatal mums weren't having their videos online. It was all secret, like lots of different ways that actually people were doing exactly the same behaviors that they had been doing offline. They transitioned to be able to do online. And even now with this conference here, it's wonderful. Like, we're all here at this amazing conference and we can do networking. We can all exchange ideas and share things. And, a year ago, if you'd said, oh, we're not going to do a face-to-face conference, we're only going to do a digital conference, people have said, oh, but that's strange, you're going to be missing out. Why would you do that? Whereas now, actually, a lot of people are seeing.
I have to say, when we set up the festival to sort of innovate the traditional boring business conference on a Friday in a hotel with everyone in suits locked up, and switch to a Saturday format, family friendly, bring the children, share each other's food and produce, and the festivals have been fabulous. And this year we had to stop it, and I was really skeptical that you could capture the zeitgeist of a festival like this. And it's not quite the same, but I think it is possible to have a much more insurgent conversation like this and creative conversation. It's less formal, it doesn't have to be stuffy. So I think we've managed to do that.
Yeah.
Thanks to your help, partly.
Yeah, well, it's been great to be involved, actually. And we're actually involved. The other thing I like is that, so I'm a mum, I've got a 3-year-old, I can go. So I'm actually also this week, as well as being at Restart, I'm also at a conference in the US on the West Coast called Podfest. We've made the app for them. They actually got a Guinness World Record for their conference in August, where they had the most podcasters to ever attend a virtual event. So we got a Guinness World Record for that.
Good for
and
you.
We've done the app for them. And I'm literally doing that conference in America at the same time as this conference, and I'll still be doing bedtime with my 3-year-old. It's amazing how there's actually more. I think there's more opportunity.
Yeah.
You can do so much more by using technology. And the other wonderful thing, so I'm really keen on the environment and protecting it, and I love that we can do all these things without having to travel and create all that extra carbon and all those extra footprints. It's definitely so benefits, and missing out on so many of the disadvantages. I don't see why we would go back to how it was before. I think we're heading to a new future. Now, what that looks like, that's what we're here to discuss and find out.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of opportunity, and people need to, and I think people are very open-minded to, well, what does this opportunity give us? And that's really...
We're going to work with you over the next few months on setting out a sort of digital charter manifesto. Presumably some basic things. We've got something like 15% of Norfolk and Suffolk, population-wise, 10% won't get full fibre. That was sort of obvious to me at the beginning. I always wanted us to give a voucher to the most rural areas so they could buy their own. But actually, that's 10 to 15% of population. It's about 30% by area. Seems to me if we're really going to unleash this digital revolution, we've got to get rid of those not spots. You've got to be able to drive around and not lose a phone call. So I think that's one of the...
Absolutely. The inequality that it will create as well. You'll have a dual economy, because if everything suddenly becomes online, and depending on where you live, you either can access that or you can't.
And presumably, I'm just thinking other things. I mean, training, is there a problem with people not knowing how to they're slightly intimidated by digital, and a very short course would get them up to speed? Would that make a difference?
Absolutely. I think training is essential. And actually, we talked on the call that we had the other day about how training should be the 8th of the Magnificent 7, the education, because actually it touches across all of the areas. Yeah. And I think there are, some people that aren't that familiar with things that need training, and there's others that are familiar but maybe want to transition into other areas because the job market is changing so much, and people's previous aspirations, maybe there's new opportunities now, or the thing that they wanted to do has changed. I read an interesting article today on the BBC of a Norfolk train driver who was about to do his train course, training and train training, and that all got cancelled. And he was going to give up on it, and now they just started the training again. And he says, well, he thinks there'll always be people needing to travel by train, but it just shows you how, a lot of, I think something like 50% of young people now are giving up on their dream careers and thinking that they're not going to be able to ever do the job that they really wanted. And this is all very recent. So there's a real crisis on at the moment. And I think instead of us sort of almost being stuck from an education point of view, us being stuck in the mindset of how education was, I think we need to start thinking about how it could be. So you've got things like Google are now doing £300 courses where they're going to hire people that have done their £300 course. Then they don't care whether you've done a degree or not. They don't care if you've done any of that other, the other kind of training, because actually, as much, I'm a big advocate for universities. So I'm not saying anything against universities, but hiring in tech, most people that come out of universities, computer science courses, don't actually learn the skills that they need to have a job in a technology company. It's well known in the area. This is why some wonderful people in the area have been doing these apprentice schemes and all sorts of things to actually bring people into software through training and apprenticeships because of that gap. But actually, if you think of, well, maybe we need to rethink how we're doing the training in the first place. And I think Google is giving a really interesting example there. And I wonder if employers
we will be looking at that
degree that costs £300 more than a degree.
We will be looking at that as part of the project, because it's also important for Norfolk schools. No point closing local rural schools if you could keep them alive with more digital. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Can I come, Genevieve, to you? If we're going to do, what you've done in Lowestoft is extraordinary. I've set up a few festivals, and I haven't got anywhere close to 30,000. And Lowestoft is not the easiest location. You wouldn't possibly choose it as a national venue. So can I just ask you, what do you think local authorities, national government need to do to help you do more of that sort of work?
I think my sort of priorities and thinking about local government and what they can do echo a little bit of what's just been said. I think upskilling is absolutely key for young people to be able to be part of the creative economy. When we talk about, the creative economy, the cultural world that I work in, it's a huge area. You're thinking of theatre, music, dance, television production, publishing, digital, of course, gaming. And actually, when you create a festival, all of those things, are important. And so local government, national government, actually has a huge role to play, I think, in helping those young people, particularly, to be kind of job ready. And the worrying thing for our sector at the moment, of course, is that everything in a way is caught in aspic, it's frozen. And so we don't want those young people to be turned away from actually what is a thriving part of our economy. So I was interested today to see, the unveiling of government's adult education initiative. I think that's very important. And also, local government being involved in the new Kickstart project, for example, that you may have been talking about today on other forums. But, that's going to give young people, 16 to 24-year-olds, the opportunity to work with creative organisations. That's very important. I think the other important thing that local governments can do, well, there's several, but it's local government and it's national government really, is really tailored sector support. We work with umpteen self-employed and freelancers, and it's those creative people who do need some targeted support. So I put that out there. There's a wealth of experience and talented people. And I suppose maybe some sort of business incentive schemes as well that actually reach out to those sort of individuals and micro businesses to drive creative entrepreneurship. So I think that local government actually is very creative. Certainly the one that I work with is. And, the other thing that they really realise is how culture is an integral part of placemaking. And the thing that we've managed to do with the First Light Festival is to not only run a 24-hour festival, but actually create community projects that wrap around that festival. What that does is it involves people in all sorts of ways to make them feel a part of something that in fact is a big, perhaps could become a big sort of, icon of tourism, but actually all the local people are part of it. They're co-curating it in lots of ways. And that's really, really important. And I think that local government, again, they realise that, because the output of something like First Light Festival is really about boosting community cohesion to a great degree. In a place like Lowestoft, it's about really raising aspiration, making people feel that their town, which has had very little investment in all sorts of ways historically, actually is a place where really exciting things can happen, that it can be part of a cultural tourism calendar. Tourism is also the other thing on my list that is very, very important. Driving, I think, sustainable cultural tourism will be key going forward.
You make a really important point. Tourism is, for all the food, medicine, energy and technology, tourism is still Norfolk's #1 industry. And it's been hit really hard by COVID. Unlike some of the high streets, I don't think anyone thinks this is the end of tourism at all. And in fact, there's an opportunity to bounce back smarter, cleaner, greener, linking to farms like Rosie's, linking to digital arts festivals like yours. Tourism in Norfolk should mean more than just going to Norwich Castle or to Castle Acre. I think we need to make it easier for people to come in from Stansted, download the app, log in and say they want a 4-hour bike ride, 1 airfield and a pub and a farm gate. We're not integrating enough with all the various assets that we've got. Thank you. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's go round. Rosie, if we're going to help enlighten, progressive, you used a brilliant word, forgotten what it was now, farmers of tomorrow, what do we need to do? I mean, obviously, we've got to not sell out British farming to the US in a cheap trade deal. And we've got to support the countryside and farmers to do that bit that isn't rewarded in the food price of looking after wildlife and habitat, causes close to our hearts. But what else would you say in terms of Norfolk and Suffolk we should be doing to help young people like you, dynamic entrepreneurial people who, as you said, didn't know about farming, but you've come in with a great energy. What do we need to do to encourage more people like you to come into what is actually...
Am I here?
Yeah,
Gosh.
we can hear you.
For a young person, I'm not very good at technology, am I? Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting question. And, our industry needs new ideas and energy. And I think there are actually opportunities that have sprung up as a result of COVID-19, which, there's been this sort of love for the countryside that, perhaps had been slightly forgotten before. And that's, not only in terms of wellness and people enjoy, I suppose it's termed natural capital in terms of wild swimming and taking up cycling and dog walking and really recognizing those benefits. There's also been a recognition of the provenance of food. And I think looking at the supply chains and how we can connect people with where their food comes from. And that links very nicely, into education and understanding, exactly what it takes to grow our food and connecting people with nature again. There's been a huge surge in farm shops and things like that. And definitely, looking at wild yoga, I mean, most of the farmers I've met are not going to be retraining as yoga instructors. So there's very nice partnerships there could be formed, which at the moment, we're not very good at collaborating, I guess, with each other. And also it's sort of within our sector and then between other sectors, and how we can facilitate that, I think, will be really important. The sort of hackathon events of how we can look at problems we're facing, because, I can easily look at the farm and think, well, hand hoeing doesn't seem right, but equally that massive spraying past doesn't seem right. I'm sure there's a technology solution, but I'm not going to be able to solve that. And unless I proactively go out there and search for it, no one's going to just create that for me. So it's how we kind of can link all of these ideas to drive innovation. And I think, a very important point about biodiversity and looking at the opportunities of biodiversity net gain. We talk a lot about the stronger, cleaner, greener bouncing, but the reality of our environment and the ecosystems and biodiversity is that none of them, or they're anything but that at the moment. And we, have a real responsibility. And also there's an opportunity there. We've got pieces of, we've got fields that, they shouldn't be farmed. They just, they're not, that it's not efficient, and lots of things have been masking that. And so the, policy and looking at biodiversity net gain is going to be absolutely key.
I don't want to put words into your mouth because it's not my job, but I am really struck that, I grew up on a farm in the 70s, farmed by someone who'd been trained in the 50s, and it was pretty intensive, agrochemical. That was good practice back then. And my stepfather was everything by the book, what ADAS had told them, what the agriculture colleges had taught them. And there was a sort of sense that the bigger the hedge, the better, the bigger the tractor, the better, the bigger the keep out sign, the better. And farming was an industry behind the hedge. And that's totally changed. And I walk around your farm with you and Alex, and I have a lot of friends now in modern farming. And yeah, they're commercial, trying to get the best price for their blackcurrants or whatever. But I think there's an opportunity emerging. So many of your generation are doing the wildlife. They could embrace digital technology so you can watch the cuckoos and the kingfishers from the comfort of your own home with a remote camera without disturbing them. Glamping in the meadows, low footprint ecological tourism, come as a family and live in a tent and cut your own firewood. Those sort of experiences now, people will pay a huge amount. And I think many more families today are thinking, wouldn't it be more fun to take the family to a Norfolk meadow and live like that than to go to Stansted and sit in a jet and go to a foreign city? I think we're going to see a big change in people's appetite to be connected to the land. And that's creating a lot of opportunities, I think, for farmers, not just to do the farming, but to be the custodians of a sort of new stewardship model, which I think is what you're also thinking about on your farm, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, looking on a landscape scale and working with other landowners, we're relatively small. So it's how we can look at that connectivity between us all. And you talk about meadow, I think they said this morning, I think 97% of the UK flower meadows have gone. So, I think there are all of these opportunities, and it's, recognizing that, we have done things that are wrong, and I'm not going into that sort of, but there are so many things that we can now get right. And it's that fundamental change in the way that we think and do things, because it just can't be done in the same way it always has.
I may be stretching the point here, but I look at digital and think quite a lot of people I know in London who wouldn't know one end of a blackcurrant from the other I think there's quite a lot of them might like the opportunity to become sort of friends of Rosie and Alex's Gresson Hall farm, literally pay a membership fee, get a bit of a discount on their Ribena, get a chance to book a tent in the meadow one day. I think people want to belong and they want to be connected. And one of the extraordinary things about digital technology is you can literally, without driving 4 hours, you can click and get a weekly message from Rosie on how the blackcurrants are doing, sort of book your tent in the summer. I think there's a really exciting opportunity for us to mix up what have traditionally been very different sectors here in East Anglia to create a sort of new rural renaissance.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it's really exciting looking at the, 7 of us and how we can interconnect. And there's so many different ways that, what has been a really difficult time, that there are ways that we can really help our counties be at the forefront of how we can back from this.
Brilliant, thank you. So Louise,
and actually,
sorry, go on.
What I just want to say, a nice thing about this, I guess the purpose here is to cross-collaborate between each sector and things. So with that awesome idea that you had, George, for the farm, you could actually do that, Rosie, with our tech, because our tech is basically membership subscription tech. So you could have your website powered by us. So you literally could have it tomorrow. You wouldn't have to build it at all. It's already built. And then you could literally just start getting people to subscribe and get them over to come camping next summer.
There you go. And if Ali Clabban, one of our other Magnificent Seven, was on, Ali founded LiftShare. Again, mother of necessity.
Yeah, he could do the transport.
Yeah. So Ali's got, for those of you who don't know LiftShare, it's now the world's biggest car share company. Ali and his team in Norwich, 30 staff, have got 600 corporate clients, FTSE 100s, and they now do car share schemes, so that instead of employees driving in one car, they're driving in 2 in a car, 3 in a car, or maximum bonus points, 4 in a car, reducing the footprint. Ali's company reduces the carbon footprint in the UK by 1 million avoidable car journeys a day. But he's also got huge digital travel to work area in Norfolk, and so has the capability to help redesign a public transport system. So instead of running dirty diesel buses up empty roads, we could ask people to log on the night before and say, I need to go from Gresson Hall to Watton in the morning, and we'll get you a mini car or a cab or a bus, depending on how many there are. So there's some amazing combinations of technology. Louise, let's dream the dream. What do you think we could be thinking about making Norfolk and Suffolk exemplars of best practice of adopting health technology to reduce cost, improve care, and allow more people to live dignified lives in the community?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. So I think we've seen some really great examples of that just since the spring with COVID, of industries that perhaps don't traditionally work in healthcare or medicine, all coming together in a concerted effort, whether it's 3D printing for PPE, visors, whether it's creating ventilators. And certainly one of the chief execs of one of the hospitals in these counties has tasked our organisation, and probably others on this panel, to help foster that collaboration, that cross-sector collaboration for the benefit of healthcare. And that's certainly something that I see that this Restart initiative, it's been something that's been on my mind since we spoke about it in April. And it is really just so that everybody doesn't just go back to the day job, and that's what I'm doing. And I think this could be really quite a nice training ground as well for, let's say it's some of the mechanical engineers, for example, for some placements or apprenticeships. We've talked about the training domain to apply their expertise perhaps in a more healthcare or life science kind of sector for a period of time, and actually cross-fertilize those ideas and vice versa. So I think that's one particular area that I'm really passionate about and want to really use this Restart as that catalyst to drive that forward. I think the other piece for me is really around, we're supporting a number of incubator kind of models in the region, in Norfolk and Suffolk, but it's starting companies, but also our day job is to help those companies get to their next key decision point, what's the quickest and most expedient and practical for them. But it's also about not just starting up lots of companies, it is helping those that exist today scale. And we talked about perhaps, or maybe it was alluded to, not having those companies scale to the point where then they go to the US or elsewhere, but actually that they stay within the UK, but certainly within our region. So that's the second piece. And again, they're initiatives that we're doing today, but I think we can really work together to do that. Obviously, digital is cutting across every health tech innovation that we're seeing these days as well. So the cross sections of the sector leads you've got, George, we talked about this a little while ago. And I think just the final thing is, so investment, obviously, and we work a lot with international investors, and I've introduced those to some Norfolk companies just recently who are going for financial raise. But it's that be ambitious. And I'm going to use an example from when I first joined Eastern AHSN a year and a half ago, is I was speaking to one of the directors of one of the Cambridge science parks, who's got great track record in starting up and helping a science park build and flourish. And this director said to me, I wish when we started asking for international investment or investment full stop, we'd have been more ambitious. I wish we'd have gone bigger and bolder. And this is Cambridge saying this. Then we laughed at that person could have probably asked for about tenfold the amount. But the description was we were very British about it. And I think for this restart, maybe we should be a little less British, even though we want to foster our Norfolk and Suffolk. But just actually, let's not be constrained, and let's shoot for the stars.
Well, here to that. One of the things I'm fond of saying is, around the world, in San Diego, Shanghai, and Singapore, Norfolk and Suffolk look like the Garden of Cambridge, and I think we've just got to end this business of having a sort of Norfolk economic development wing and a Suffolk economic development wing and a Cambridgeshire economic. We need to speak with one voice. This is why you'd come to East Anglia. Fast rail network, really good digital, beautiful countryside, great food, great education, great quality of life. It's that universal offering, which is really what this Norfolk Way Enterprise Festival is all about, and bringing you all together. So can I thank you as a four for joining us and joining the Magnificent Seven. I should just say, for the benefit of others, who the others are. Ali Clabban, founder of LiftShare, is leading for us on mobility and transport. Ian and the team at Iceni Diagnostics are leading on health tech in terms of the invention and the development of a whole range of things, from mental health, digital health, to new drugs and interventions and diagnostics. Guy Ransom and the brilliant team at Fingeotherm, a Norfolk-based startup leading the world in ground source heat pumps, renewable energy. His only plea is that some of his technology actually gets put into some of the houses being built in Norfolk. And then we've got a separate project looking at property, and you heard John earlier with me and Richard Stanton from Pigeon and 10 or 12 others to see whether we couldn't put together a property fund that could help support the Magnificent Seven and the growth of those sectors. I should just give an illustration, I think, of one of the exciting areas that, Louise, you talked about, the sort of cross-fertilisation, 3D printing and stuff. Mark Lapping, who is my co-chair of the Norfolk and Suffolk Enterprise Festival, he runs a company called Aquapack. They do dissolvable plastic. And one of the things they did in the COVID crisis was to make dissolvable laundry bags for PPE. So for staff on the front line of health and care, and no one knew this, but many of them were having to get dressed in the garage or in the garden to take off their COVID clothes and then tiptoe in their undies through the back door into the house and put it all in the washing machine. And that's not what we should be expecting frontline health and care workers to do at the end of a long day. And Mark shipped a whole lot of disposable laundry bags. So you put all your clothes in COVID compliant in the washing machine. In the morning, the bag's gone. And I think there's huge opportunities for us to use different technologies and innovations to support different sectors here in Norfolk. Government could never do it. It's too big and complicated. It would take them years. But actually in Norfolk and Suffolk, we could do it if we really want to. So thank you so much for joining us. Our commitment over the next 6 months is that our Magnificent Seven, our 4 entrepreneurs here and the other 3 that I've mentioned, are going to work in their sectors to ask you, the entrepreneurs on the front line, what you want to see at the heart of the Norfolk and Suffolk regeneration plan. Not what government wants, not what the LEP, but what you want to see to enable you to grow your businesses quicker. And I say that because we're looking down the barrel of probably, sadly, 60,000 redundancies in our 2 counties. How many small businesses are there? 60,000 in Norfolk and Suffolk. If we helped each small business take on 1 person, that's the job done. And if we really want to get a vibrant economy growing, we're going to have to support these guys and you guys to grow those companies. So that's what the Norfolk Way Enterprise Festival is all about. And in the spring, at our digital event 6 months from now, we'll be reporting back on our charter for entrepreneurial growth. If you'd like to help, get involved, support us, join one of the Magnificent Seven, please just contact us at the Norfolk Enterprise Festival. Thank you guys very much. look forward to working with you, and I look forward to doing everything I can to make sure that locally and nationally your vision for how we drive a recovery is the vision. Because as you've demonstrated in your own businesses, given the freedom, given the chance, you can do amazing things. Imagine if we harness that spirit in the broader governmental approach. I think you would do it for us, really. So thank you all very much. We've got a final message before the wrap-up session. Please join us at 4:30. We're going to be setting out some of the things that are happening tomorrow and some of the plans going forward in the next 6 months. So for now, thank you to our magnificent board.
George, can I also just add thank you to you, because I think that it's really special what you're doing to really bring everyone together and to really head these things. And it's really nice to see that in government, you know, coming from yourself. And I love the way that you think out the box all the time, and you're very innovative in the way that you approach things. And I really value that. I know other people really value that. And I just think it's really nice to kind of shout out that to you, because I think a lot of the time MPs get a bit of a hard time. And I just really think it's great that you're really going to, you know, doing all of this with us. So thank you to you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I do it because I think politics needs to get some of your energy, some of the imagination, the drive that the entrepreneurial sector is showing. And that's my commitment, really, is to try and make it easier to bring that in to government. But thank you for saying it. Thank you for what you're doing. Thanks all. And please come and join us again. You've got a time for a cup of tea, and we'll see you at 4:30 for the wrap up. Thank you. See you then.